Begin the current Daf, Mesech the Sotah Daf Lameches. We begin in the bottom of Lamed Zayin Beis, 2 lines up at the bottom of the Yommi. We continue halacha the next Mishnah, going back to this that we started the parak in the first Mishnah called Elu Nemarim, which what started off this whole conversation was that these are things that are said b'chol lashon, and then we had certain things that are Nemarim b'lashon hakodesh, and on that theme, our Mishnah continues on that halacha regarding one of the items that we said has to be Lashon HaKodesh of Birchas Kahanim. So we get into the halachic discussion of the Birchas Kahanim. Appreciate everyone is joining for today's daf. Something to discuss in today's daf are several distinctions between Birchas Kahanim and the Beis HaMikdash and in other places. There's difference how they do that. Also, Niktina on the Shnaim Kar Kahanim will echad in the Kar Kain, and these are some halacha l'mais. Whoever doing Daf Yomi ba'alacha, the dear should Mishbur has just done these halachas of Nesi's Kapayim of that. When there's two kaim going to duchen, you call out kohanim, but when there's only one kain, then you don't call out kohanim because it's only one kain. We also have 8 agadic statements of Rabbi Shloimy Levi, and regarding what happens if you have a basic knesset shekula kahanim. It's one big family there on Orlando for Pesach, the Kahanim family, and there's just Kahanim. So what do you do? So it makes a difference if the lo yishter be'asara or the yishter be'asara. If you're going to have that there's 10. Or if there's not 10, what you do regarding who goes up to Duchen, who's going to be there to receive that, and so on. And some of the important terms of concepts is tzitz, that's the Kohen Gadol, had the tzitz on his forehead, and that's significant regarding the Birchas Kahanim, what we call Hilchas Nesias Kapayim. It's actually what we call it. We call it the lifting up of the hands. That's one of the critical things. How high do you pick up the hands? And Egla Rufa, the halacha when someone dies between the cities, and you don't know who killed them, that you decapitate the calf from the people of the city closest. So begin the current Daf Lamed Zayin Beis, 2 lines up at the bottom of the Yomid. Says the Mishnah, Birchas Kahanim Keitzad. What is this halacha of Birchas Kahanim that we had said that it's done specifically b'lashon hakodesh? How does this halacha work? Says the Mishnah, B'medina oimer oisa shalosh brachas. Out of the Beis HaMikdash, it is said as 3 different brachas, meaning the Kahanim stop between every one of the 3 psukim, and the tzibur, the community, they answer amen to the bracha. However, b'mikdash bracha achas, the Beis HaMikdash, it was said as one bracha because, as the Gemara is going to explain, in the Beis HaMikdash they didn't answer amen, so they didn't have to stop between the brachas, and therefore it was said as one long bracha. And then at the end they said what they say. Moreover, b'mikdash es Hashem, as we get to the top of Lamed Chesed Aleph Kiksavai. They say God's name as it's written with a Yud, Hey, and a Vav, Hey. That's how they would pronounce it, with God's ineffable name. Medina, however, out of the Beis HaMikdash, when they do Birchas Kahanim, is Bikinuyav, with its descriptive pronunciation, which is Aleph Daled Nun Yud. And that's how we say it. We say Ad Nus, the word Adoy Danoi. And in the Beis HaMikdash, they actually said Hashem's name, which we don't say. Another difference is, the Medina, out of the Beis HaMikdash, kanim noisim es yedeim keneged kispeim. When they do Nesias Kapayim, they do that their hands are opposite their shoulders, as this picture illustrates, because you need to do Nesias Kapayim, as the Gemara is going to bring a brisa, so you have to lift up your palms, so they do it opposite their shoulders. Ubemikdash, but in the Beis HaMikdash was al gabe rashehen, was over their heads. Why? Because since, as we just said in the Beis HaMikdash, they would do Birchas Kahanim with the Shem HaMafayrash, and the Shechina, therefore, the divine presence was resting above their knuckles, so therefore it had to be over their heads, versus out of the Beis HaMikdash, you're not saying God's name, you're saying it with Ad Nus, Aleph Dal Nun Yud, and therefore you had to do Nesias Kapayim, but it didn't have to be over their head. Now, however, on that says the Mishnah further, that Chutz mi Kohen Gadol, except for the Kohen Gadol, She'eini Magbiyas Yadav Lamala Min HaTzitz, that he did not pick up his hand above the tzitz that he wore, because that said Kodesh Lashem on his forehead. So he didn't want to pick his hands over God's name. And therefore, as this picture illustrates, he would pick it up, but not over his head. Rabbi Shloimy says, no, he disagrees. He says, even the Kohen Gadol would lift up his hands above the tzitz. Like we said, in the Beis HaMikdash, they would lift it up over their heads. Like it says in the Pasuk, in the Yikra, which is the original Nesias Kapayim, it says, Aaron lifted up his hands to the people, and he benched them. So he learns from there that he lifted it up high above, and it was over his tzitz. So the Gemara explains the halachic source of the Birchas Kohanim and the fact that we had said, opening up this parak, that it said, B'lashon HaKodesh. Says the Gemara, turn on, we learn the Brisa. It says in the pasuk, es b'nei Yisrael amalehem. That's the source of this is what you should bless the Jewish people. It says the Brisa b'lashon hakodesh. That is in lashon hakodesh. Really, at the lashon hakodesh, do you say that that's really going to be lashon hakodesh? Or maybe no, maybe it's in every single language. No, you don't say that. Why? Because it says over here that this is how you should bless them. And it says over the pasuk in Devarim, when we spoke about how grizim, how evil, it says, these people should stand to bless the people. So here it says, and there it says, levarich. So we teach, just like over there was in Lashon HaKodesh, Avkan, Lashon HaKodesh, so over here should be Lashon HaKodesh. Which Taisa says, what do you mean? Adarabba. Why didn't you say from a different pasuk? There also it says, Verachta. And there we know, as we said in our Mishnah of Lamed Gimel, that you could be b'chol lashon. Maybe also over here, by Birchas Kohanim should be b'chol lashon. Says Taisa, no, it's more logical to learn Birchas Kohanim from the bracha b'har grizim, because both of their brachas are explicit in the Torah. Because Taisa says, wait a second, the bracha by har grizim was not explicit, but it is, because all the klolos were explicit, and the brachas were the inverse of the klolos. So it's like it said explicitly in the Torah. But the words of Birchas Hamazon are not explicit in the Torah. It doesn't say anywhere in the Torah, Basa the bracha, Azon Zakol Neidlecha. So therefore, it's more logical to learn that Birchas Kohanim from the bracha b'har grizim ha'evil, and therefore just like over there was b'lashon hakodesh, avkan b'lashon hakodesh. Rabbi Yudam says, no, in the tzarich, you don't have to learn out from this gezerah shava of bracha, because the word is kai. Kai is achiyim b'lashon hazeh until you say in this wording. But Taisa brings the Rabbanon, they don't hold that kai is ma'akib. Kacha, with an extra kaf, is ma'akib. But the word kai wouldn't necessarily tell you that it has to be in this wording. So that's the machlekes. Do you know it from Gezerah Shava, or do you know it from the word kai? Now, Tani learn another brayse that says kai savaruchu. This is how you should bless the Jewish people. Says the brayse ba'amida. Means to say you have to be standing. Atoim ba'amida. Do you really say you have to be standing, or in yeshiva? Maybe you could be sitting. No, because Nehemakan says kai savaruchu. This is how you should bless. V'nemelahan says over there, Eliyam bilavarach, which you just showed this Gezerah Shava from Hagriz Mar Evil, when it talks about there to be Mevarech, and it says Yamdu. Malahal Bamida, just like over there they were standing. I've come Bamida, so to over here, and so far that Taisa says that if he was sitting and he said Birchas Kohanim, he would have to go and do it over again, and you have to be standing when you're doing Birchas Kohanim. If Nosnami says, no, in the tzarech. No, you don't have to learn it out from this, from the source that you're bringing from Hagriz Mar Evil. Why? Because I'll bring you a different source. It says in the pasuk in Devarim, l'sharsai ulevarich b'shmai, to serve him and to bless him in his name. So the pasuk in Devarim is comparing two different elements in the same thing. It's comparing l'sharsai, which means to serve him, and levarich b'shmai, which is the Birchas Kohanim. Ma misharis b'amida, just like serving him has to be standing. So too, the blessing, the Birchas Kohanim has to be standing. It says the Gemara, Misharis guf minal. How do you know that Misharis itself has to be standing? Because is a pasuk in the bottom. It says Lamoid l'sharis, to stand, to serve, and therefore that says Rav Nosson is the source. How you know you have to stand by Birchas Kohanim, two different sources. If you know it from Gezerah Shava Hagriz Mar Evil, or you know it from the Avodah of the Kahanim. Another brayse we learned. Kai savarchu. This is how you should bless the Jewish people. Says the Brisa, how is this? B'nesis kapayim, with the lifting of the palms. So, meaning, and don't ask that. Wait a second. That so it says the Brisa, b'nesis kapayim. Do you say it's with the lifting of the palms? Or maybe it's without lifting of the palms? No. Says the Brisa, Nemakan Kasabaruch, it says over here, this how you should bless them. And Nemalan says over there, that Aaron lifted up his hands to the people and he blessed them. So what do you see? Malahalan b'nesis kapayim, just like over there was with the lifting of the palms. Afkan b'nesis kapayim. Also over here is with the lifting of the palms. So says the Gemara. So that's where you would know there has to be b'nesis kapayim. But Kasha Rabbi Yonasan. But this was difficult to Rabbi Yonason. Meaning, on this Gezerah Shava, that if you're learning out from a Gezerah Shava from Aaron HaKohen, you could ask the following question and say, wait a second, that's your source that you have to do in the Siyas Kapayim, that you have to lift up the hands? If you say over there, what's there? The source that you just brought me, that the Yisa Aaron as Yadav, you saw that when you're doing the Nesiyas, the Birchas Kam, you have to do what's called Nesiyas Kapayim, you have to lift up the palms. But over there was by the Miluim, was when they did the inauguration of the Mishkan. That time in history, you had Kohen Gadol, first of all, not Stama Kohen, it was Aaron. V'rosh Chodesh, Ayom Tov, v'avodas tzibur. Because like Rashi brings, it says over there, Vayedid, when it talks about the Birchas Kam that Aaron did, it says Vayedid ma'asos achatos v'oilav hashlam, and they were all kabbanas sibur, like it says kachosir izim, etc. And it was Rosh Chodesh, like it says B'yom HaChodesh Harishon Me'echel HaChodesh Tokim, and which was the Yom Shemin Lamiluim, as it says in the Bryson Seder Olam, which that day took 10 crowns, Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So if you want to bring me from over there that you have to do Nesiyas Kapayim, Afkan, so then you'll say when it's a Kohen Gadol, V'rosh Chodesh v'avodas tzibur. How are you proving over there that when the regular Kohen on a regular day, at a regular time, has to do in the Nesiyas Kapayim? So Rabbi Shloimy, he says, Ein tzarich. He says, yeah, but like Rashi explains, because of the difficulty of the Gezerah Shava that was just brought, he brings not from a Gezerah Shava, but from a Hekesh. He says, no, you don't need a source that you brought. I'll bring you a different source. Harei Oimer, the pasuk says in the Varim, Hu Uvanov, it says over there, Lamed L'shoris B'Shem Hashem, to stand, to serve in the name of God. Hu Uvanov, Kalayam, him and his sons, all the days. So Markish Banav Loi, it's comparing his sons to him. Mahu ben Nesiyas Kapayim, just like him. Him, who is him? Aaron is with lifting of the palms. Avbanav ben Nesiyas Kapayim. So to the sons is also going to be with Nesiyas Kapayim. And then you can't ask anymore, oh, but he was a Kohen Gadol, because like Rashi says, the famous Talmudic dictum of Eimashim and Al-Ekesh. Even though you could say, wait a second, how could you compare Hu Banav? What I mean, he's a Kohen Gadol, they're not. Says and that says Rashi that when it's a Hekesh, it's a different halachic algorithm than it is by a Gezerah Shava. Gezerah Shava, you can ask a question. A Hekesh is Eimashim and Al-Hekesh. The pasuk is putting it together to tell us that it's going to have the same halacha. This says, but still, how are you including avodas yachid? B'chol hayamim, because the Brisa continues and says, uksiv, it says over there, kol hayamim, which the Gemara is trying to say, and don't ask, say, okay, fine, you compared the children to the father, so it doesn't have to be a Kohen Gadol, but still it was Rosh Chodesh and avodas hatzibur, so maybe only then would you have to do Nesiyas Kapayim? No, because it says all the days. So Taisa finds that difficult, but how do you know that the same thing would be, if Kol Hayamim still wouldn't tell you of avodas yachid, it still might be only avodas tzibur, because Kol Hayamim, a tamid is also Kol Hayamim. So he says, you're right, according to everyone, it's true. We're not really, when you do a carbon yachid, you don't have Nesiyas Kapayim. It's just parenthetically that it was said. But at least you could include a regular day and a regular kohen to this halacha. Now, although that pasuk is talking about avodah, but the iskish bracha l'shiris. But we mentioned before, we have a hekish. The pasuk says, in other words, what the Gemara is trying to say is, even though this pasuk is not talking about by bracha, it's talking about shirus avodah, lamid l'sharis b'shem Hashem hu abanam kol yom, to stand there to serve in the name of God, him and his sons all the days. But as we mentioned before, we have a hekish comparing bracha to shirus, where it says l'shal levarach b'shmai. So since we compare bracha berachas kanim to the avodah, and this pasuk is equating Aaron and the sons to a regular day and to regular kayin for avodah, so therefore the same would be by the bracha that you'll have in the Nesiyas Kapayim. Tanidach, another brisa that says, again, another limud we're doing from the same words of Kol Savarchus B'nai Yisrael. This is how you should bless the Jewish people. Says the brisa is b'shem hamafirish, is with God's ineffable name. Atoim b'shem hamafirish, do you say with God's explicit name? Or maybe it's only with a descriptive term with a one of God's other names, meaning the way, not the way it's which Taisus brings from being the hill, that Bikinu means to say Keil, Elikim, Tzavakos, which he says not Mistaber, because how could you entertain to distort the pasuk that says Yivarecha Hashem B'Yishmerecha? How could you say Yivarecha Elikim? So rather Taisus says no, Bikinu means to say with Aleph Daled, Nun Yud. You would think that you wouldn't bless with the Shem Havaya, you would do it with the Shem Adnus. No, Tamalayim, it says a pasuk in Bamidbar, V'samu es Shemi. You should place my name. What's my name? Shemi HaMeyuchadli. The name that's designated for me, which is the way it's written. And that's how they said in the Beis HaMikdash, which was the Shem Havaya. Now, Yachal Apak Vulin Kain, you would think the same thing would be that out of the Beis HaMikdash would be the same thing that they would do. They would say Yekave with a hey, they would say the actual name of God. No, because Nemakan it says over here, V'samu es Shemi, you should place my name. V'nemalaham it says over there, pasuk in the bottom, Losam es Shemai Sham, to place his name over there. Which? What's over there? What's that pasuk saying over there? That's talking about the Beis HaMikdash. Malaham Beis HaBechir, just like over there was the chosen place, the chosen house. That it's saying regarding the Beis HaMikdash, and it's talking about placing God's name. I've come to Beis HaBechir. So also over here when it says B'sam Shmi is where it's going to be by the Beis HaMikdash. That's when you mention God's name.
That's how he was able to fly.
What about it?
That's because it said, I'm not sure, the 72-letter name.
There are longer names. There might have been that the Khanim would what do you call it, mumble it, but no one else was able to hear it. But the Shem Havai was something that they would say out loud. So
why would they mumble it?
It wasn't because it was a secret. It wasn't that they wanted people to know about this. But Rabbi Shloimy says, no, ain't it tzarich. You don't have to learn out this halacha from the comparison of Shmi that you have from that pasuk Beis HaMikdash, because I'll bring you a different source. It says a pasuk in Shemais. It says, B'chol hamokum asher asket es Shemi, in any place that I will mention my name, Ovo yelecha, I will come to you, uveirachticha, and I'll bless you. Now, question is, what's the Gemara's question? Like Rashi explains, you think in every place God's distinct name is mentioned, but there's a pasuk in Shemais that says Zeh Shmi v'Zeh Zichri, which the Gemara Pesachim Navnun darshans to say, not the way I am written am I pronounced. So you cannot mention God's name everywhere. Moreover, you think in every place the Shekhinah is going to come and rest, that it says Ovay Alecha, Hashem says I will come to you, and He doesn't designate a place for His name to be mentioned. Ella rather says the Gemara, you're right. Mikra zeh mesurasu. This pasuk is inverted, and it should be read as follows, from back to front, meaning which that's actually the end of the pasuk, but that's how it should be read. In every place that I'm going to come to and I'm going to bless you, meaning in the oil moyed in the midbar and in Shiloh and in the Beis Ha'ilam and the Beis HaMikdash, where that's where I come, that's where my Beis HaMikdash is. Shom asked as Shemi. That's where I'll have my name mentioned. Oh, where do I come to and bless you? That's the Beis HaBechira. That's in the chosen house, the Beis HaMikdash. Shom asked as Shemi. Beis HaBechira. That's where I'll have my name mentioned in the Beis HaMikdash. So that's the source that only in the Beis HaMikdash, where the divine presence rests, that's where the Shem HaMafayrish may be enunciated. I need to learn another brisa that says Koisa Baruchu es Bnei Yisrael. This is how you should bless the Jewish people. And that's why Taisus brings that actually in the days of Shemna Tzaddik. The Gemara Yoma says they stopped benching with the Shem Havaya because they weren't Zeichet the Gilush Shechina. And the whole point is where there's Gilush Shechina, as we see from the pasuk, that's where you go ahead and you say it with Shem Havaya. But if not, then you don't. Then you learn another brayse. This is how you should bench the Jewish people. So ain't le'el b'nei Yisrael. I would only know Jewish sons. Gadim, converts, noshim, women, bavodim, mishuchrarim, and freed slaves. How do you know that the Bechaz Kama goes on them too? It says in the pasuk Midbar, Omer lehem, say to them. What's to them? Is including lekulu to all of them. Allah Yidin are including the Bechaz Kama. Then you learn another brayse, another important halacha. This is how you should bench them. What does that mean? This panim keneged panim, face to face, which big tzaddikim would dafka go in the middle of the shul to go face to face with the kahanim, not to be on the sides. But do you say face to face, or maybe do you say that the face to the neck, meaning maybe the tzibur doesn't have to turn their face towards the kahanim. Maybe they could be facing the back also, like Boy B'Shalom, like everyone faces that other way. No, it says in the pasuk, Amalehem, say to them. What's he say to them? A person's talking to them. Talk to them. You don't talk to the hand. You don't talk to the neck. You talk to the face. So therefore, it means face to face. I need to learn another brayso. This is how you should bench them. The Koil Ram, one of the most famous shtiklich teira that everyone talks about, the machlekes, the Beis Halevi and the Chazon Ish, on this Koil Ram, could you make a shliach for, let's say, have a kohen that's mute? Could he stand up there and be shemei koina from the other kohen who's doing birchas kohanim? Or let's say has a stutter or something that he can't say, which would passel him. Could he be yaitze with shemei koina? That's the whole question. Is b'kol ram? Can you be yaitze kol ram with your fellow? One of the most classic shtiklach. This machlekes, a lot of ink has been spilled on that famous machlekes. But this is the halacha. This is how you should bench b'kol ram out loud. Maybe you could whisper it. No, it says Amalehem, speak to them. Like a person who speaks to his friend, which some girsais actually have the word Shia Kolakol Shemeya, that the whole community has to hear. So obviously you can't whisper it, you would have to say it out loud. Amar Abaya says, Naktina, we have a tradition, Lishnayim, when there's two Kahanim there to make Birchas Kahanim, then the Chazan, when he finishes the bracha of Hatoiv Shimcha L'chon L'hoidois, Koide Kohanim, calls out that Kohanim, and then they turn their face around, because their face was turned towards the Aron HaKodesh for davening, and then because it's at that point when they're saying Yirotzim L'fanecha Shtei Brachazu, as we're going to see in the moment, that they're davening that the birchas should be accepted after Hatoiv Shimcha L'chon L'hoidois. So then, which is in the place when they talk about, do we say the whole Al-Kedna B'Kela B'Seinu? But the point is, he calls a Kohanim, but only when there's two Kahanim. Ule Echad in the Kohen. But when there's one Kohen, then he doesn't call out Kohen, because it says in the pasuk, Omor Lahem, tell them, which from the pasuk of Lahem they learn out that the Chazan has to tell them to do the Birchas Kahanim. So Omor Lahem is going on the Kahanim. Omor Lahem, tell them that they should bench the Jewish people. So that's only to them. But when there's one Kohen, then you don't say it. That's only Lishnaim when there's two. Another halacha says Rav Chizda, like we have a tradition, Kohen. If the Chazan is a Kohen, so then Koide, he'll call out and he'll address his fellow Kahanim who are standing there, and he'll call out Kohanim to tell them to turn their face around and to bless the Jewish people. But actually, if the Chazan is Yisrael, he does not call out Kohanim. Why? Because it says in the pasuk, Amalehem, tell them. What does that mean? Tell them. The speaking should be from them, meaning this warning that they should bless the Kohanim themselves, which actually appropriate for this week's parsha, the Kohanim Amazer, the Kohen has to warn the other Kohanim to do Birchas Kohanim, which Tosfos brings actually from the Yishalmi, which is actually the halacha. Rav Chizda actually says that the Chazan has to be Yisrael and not a Kohen. And actually that is the way the halacha is, not the way our Gemara says it. But that... Right, so, well, depend. Well, a Yisrael? A Yisrael or a Kohen?
Yes, he does.
I'm clearly telling you he does.
Right, there's different minhagim in certain things, but
he always does.
Right, there's different minhagim regarding some of this stuff. It depends who the chazan is. If it's a kohen,
but they don't. But then they know they don't.
Right, because it's talking about the shevet. Talking about the shevet. Tosfos brings that, right? This is because even by one kohen you call a kohenim because you're not calling kohanim for the people going up. Eloisa shevet, but that's the shevet. Kohanim, might not have what to do in their shield, might in the klali. What? If he's a kohen, right? But he doesn't go up to the bima. Some do whatever.
Yes, he travels around, and then somebody else.
Right. Right.
So according to Gemara, you say the kohen should himself say.
There you have passing like that. Rav Chizda is saying only if he's a kohen does he call out koyanim, but that's not halacha does not follow like that. But he said that if the kohen right. Says the Gemara of Hilchos like said that by halacha follows like a bayah that you only call out kohanim. Well, actually, our Gemara says our Gemara actually says that you only call it kohanim for two kohanim. The Gemara says halacha Hilchos like say that by halacha is like a bayah that you only call it by two, not by one. But even though that we don't have a sign of the Rambam on that, but less Hilchos like say that Rav Chizda and halacha is not like Rav Chizda, who he said. Like we just said, he says only if the chazan is a kohen do you say kohen, and the halacha does not fall like him, as we said that it's even by a sral. Now the Gemara brings many teachings from Rabbi Shloimy Levi, which the first one is because of Birchas Kohen that we're discussing, and gets into many agadic teachings that are related. So the Gemara brings a siman and a mnemonic for his teachings, which are misava, lebracha, he desires the blessing, duchen ba'avodah, the platform of the service. Kois Maka, the recognizable cup. Sounds like a title like a kid series. Nena Be'egla, having pleasure from the calf. But again, these are all just simonim of the 8 different teachings that he's going to talk about. Amr Rabbi Shloimy Levi says, from where do we know HaKadosh Baruch Hu desires the Birchas Kahanim? Krishnema says, it says, somewhere Shemi al Bnei Yisrael, you're going to place my name on the Jewish people, and I'll bless them. So the way Rashi makes it sound like is that, which actually there's different gersayis in Rashi, that it makes the pasuk makes the dibur dependent on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that this bracha should be the placing of his name on his people, and he doesn't do it for the Jewish people, he does it for himself. He wants it. He wants, do this for me, and I'm going to bless them. Hashem wants it. Another teaching from Rabbi Shloimy Levi says, Kol koyin shemavarich, any koyin that does the birchas koyanim, Mizbarech, he gets blessed, because that's the question. When does he get blessed? He's so busy giving. When does he get? So that's those who give get. And actually, they even say when he has a bad cholam, what does he do? Right? Because everyone's saying when he's edzuk birchas kan, but if he doesn't bless, ein mizbarech, he doesn't get blessed. And like it says the pasuk in Bereshis, va'avarcha mevrechecha, I will bless those who bless you. Because Rashi says, wait a second, why don't you just say v'ani avarachim? Because that's actually machlokes elsewhere. Why didn't you say, tell the Khan to place my name on the Jewish people? Hashem says, I'll bless them. Says Rashi, no, because it's going on the Yisraelim. I'll bless the Jewish people, as we just said a moment ago, like Rabbi Kiva, who he says in Chulun Daf Memtes, that we learned that the bracha to the Jewish people are from the Kahanim, but where do we have the bracha from Hashem? When it says, the Kahanim bench the Jewish people, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu agrees, and he also benches them. So that's what Rashi says. That's why he brought a different pasuk, because there are those who do darshan. Is if they bench the Jewish people, Hashem says, "I'll bench the Kahanim." But our Gemara is bringing a different source, just a generic by the Jewish people. When you bench someone, you get benched yourself, because they learned that the words "V'ani Berachim" is actually going Hashem on the Jewish people. Another teaching from Rabbi Shloimy Levi says, "Kol kohen she'eino oil duchen." And the kohen does not go up into the platform. And actually, what they say leduchen, that's why it's brought in halacha that they should go up actually on the platform, on the higher, because you see that it's called duchen. But if it doesn't go up to the duchen, he violates 3 positive commandments. What are they? This is how you should bless. You should tell them. And you should place many of them. These are 3 positive wordings of how to doing Birchas Kahanim. Now, actually, Tais brings interesting from the Yerushalmi that what if, and this actually discussed in the beginning of Hilchas Nesias Kapayim, in the beginning of Mishbuch Chelik Beis, that could a tummy person could he make himself tummy for Nesias Kapayim? So the discussion basically Tais says is a discussion of Asay Dechaloisa say, because you have a mitzvah say, you have 3 mitzvahs say. A Birchas Kahanim should be Deicha Doloisa. Kain's not making himself tummy, but you would say Asay Dechaloisa say. That's how far the conversation goes, that possibly you'd be able to make yourself tummy to do Nesias Kapayim. Now, Rav Amar, he says another thing related to this. He says, actually, we're saying if he doesn't go up to Duchen, he's violating 3 positive commandments, but it's more than that. It's Chayshin Shema ben Gerusha ben Chalutzo. We're concerned that maybe he's a Chalul. Maybe it's the son of a kohen who married a gerusha or chalutza, which the Gemara says actually like pligi. These Rabbi Shloimy Levi and Rabbi are not disagreeing. Rabbi Shloimy Levi is talking about the salik leprakim, that he sometimes goes to duchen on Yom Tovim, but so then we're not concerned that people are going to say he's a chal because they see he goes up when he wants to, but he's violating 3 positive commandments. Rav was talking about the salik leprakim; it doesn't go up at different intervals, so then he never goes up to duchen. Now Taisa says actually another way that you would be able to avoid without going up even at certain times is if you take matnas kahuna. If you take the parts that the Yisrael has to give to a kohen, he takes truma, whatever this and that, as we see by Abaye was so busy learning, he never went to duchen. So, but he would take once a year. He didn't want to take matanas, but once a year he would take matnas kahuna to show that he's still a kohen. That's also enough to show that he's not a chal. Another teaching from Rabbi Shloimy Levi is kol kohen she'eino oila ba'avoda. Any kohen that, and this is also very important halacha in the Siyas Kapayim, any kohen that does not go up before the Shliach Tzibah finishes the bracha of Ritzei, then Shuv Eino Oila, he can't go up anymore to go and duchen. Krishna says in the pasuk in the Yikra, says Vayisa Aaron es yadav ela'am v'yabarchem. Aaron lifted up his hands to the people and he blessed them, which is the Siyas Kapayim, the Berachas Ganim. And then it says V'yedid ma'asoi sachatas va'oila v'ashlam. He came down from doing the sin offering and the total burnt sacrifice and the shlamim, which you see that obviously when he was still doing the avodah is when he did the birchas kahanim, and then afterwards he came down from doing it. So obviously right now is when he finished it. So malhalam just like over there, the birchas kahanim had to be when he was still by the avodah. Also over here has to be when he's still in the bracha of ritzei, which is the bracha of avodah. You have to really start making your way there. You have to already go up. That's the words. So the Gemara actually asked, is that so? We saw they went up after Ritzei, which maybe middle of Moedim they went up, by maybe about Tev Shimcha. Says yeah, but may could have a okri karayu. But before they already had moved from their place by the bracha of Ritzei, they were just far away from the duchen. Mamti lo have a moto hasam. They didn't get over there until the end of the bracha of Ritzei was already over. But the kohen doesn't have to actually go up to duchen; they have to move their feet in that direction by the bracha of Ritzei. Or like Rabbi Shloimy taught. Loish, and we didn't learn that you can't go up anymore. Only if you didn't move your feet. It's actually when the chazan is a kohen, when he does it, he also has to move his feet a little bit, shuffle a little bit, because he has to make like he's going. But if he moved his feet, then he could go up, even though it's already after, already by Moedim, already after Ritzei. It's not nami. We also learned in the Mishnah Masechtas Brachas, the beginning of that Mishnah mentions that whoever is davening for the Amid should not answer Amen after Birchas Kahanim because he's going to get confused. Now, if he's the only Kain, he shouldn't do Nesiyas Kapayim. Why? Because he's going to get confused after doing Birchas Kahanim, how to go back to davening. He's not going to know how to start Sim Shalom. But, says the Mishnah, but if he's confident that he'll be able to do Nesiyas Kapayim, and he'll be able to go back to his tefillah, to go ahead because he's well versed and he's not going to get confused, which nowadays we have a siddur, it's different, but if you're confident, then you're shy, then you're permitted to do Nesiyas Kapayim. That's what the Mishnah says in Brachas. But we had asked on that Mishnah, what do you mean? How could the Chazan go ahead and do Nesiyas Kapayim? But he didn't move, he was davening by the Amid. No, Ella, like we said, the Nod Purta. He moved a little bit. Here also the Akapurta. These Amiram, that if they moved a little bit, that's obviously enough. If you move your feet a little bit, going towards the duchen by the bracha b'tzei, even if you don't get there till after, that's enough. And therefore, but you do have to move your way that way because it has to be during avodah that the element of the bracha is happening. Another teaching from Rabbi Shloimy Levi, Chazan. Right, he's moving his legs a little bit out, during his tefillah, Rabbi Shloimy Levi says, "Ein nois nikay is katzarich atfila. Ein nois nikay bracha levarich. You don't give a kaisha bracha to make a bracha of birchas hamazen by benching. Ela l'toiv ayin. Only someone, literally means a good eye, someone who is generous of spirit. He hates money. He does acts of kindness with his money. That's a person that you give benching with the kais too. Because it says a pasuk in Mishlei, Toiv ayin hu yevayrech. The one with the good eye, which is because when you look, it's all perception, how you see things. And when you have a good eye, like in baseball, good eye, the guy's able to see things clearly. So then he finds how much blessing there is. He's blessed. The guy with the ra'ayin is always like, like the famous joke with the grandmother who buys her grandson 2 sweaters, and he knows he's coming to Baba, he's got to wear the sweater. So he comes in and he's wearing the sweater. He goes, and what was wrong with the other one? Right? Some people, they'll always find something wrong with what. So, but someone with a good eye, he's blessed because he's able to enjoy. Because he gives from his bread to the poor. He has so much, he shares with the poor. But says don't say is blessed. He blesses. Who do we give the blessing to? He could share the blessing with other people. Another teaching, Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, he says, Minayin, how do you know? Even the birds, they recognize the people that are narrow-eyed. It's very interesting wording. Tsar means narrow, because people that are their eyes, the beady eyes, they look, they don't see the whole picture. They see very narrow. They see only certain things. When you look like that, you'll see bad things because everything in the world is imperfect. So even the birds recognize the people that are stingy, and they don't eat from their food. How do we know? Somebody says the pasuk in Mishlei, because earlier in the pasuk it's talking about the tzarei ayin, the people that are stingy. It says kichinam mezoira harashes. For nothing do they spread out their nets. Be'enei kol bal kanaf, in the eyes of every winged creature. Meaning the way the hunters, the way they do it is that they spread out some wheat and barley in their net so the birds come to eat. But these tzarei ayin, for nothing are they wasting their food that they spread out in their net in front of every winged creature, because they recognize and they don't enjoy. You go to that person who's like, he's like, eat up, no, I have das gemacht for the. I'm saying, like, even the birds don't enjoy it, and they're not going to come to eat the food because of the stinginess of this person. Another related teaching, Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg says, Kol hanenem mitzarei ayin, whoever has benefit from a person that is a tsar ayin, oive belav, violates a negative prohibition. Why? Because it says a pasuk in Mishlei. It says, Al tilcham es lechem, don't eat the bread of ra'ayin v'goymer, from the person with the bad eye. Kikamoy shar v'goymer, etc. And it says, Kikamoy shar benafshe kenu, because like he's bitter in his soul, that's what he is. He's going to tell you, eat and drink, but like the pasuk there ends, his heart's not with you. His heart's not in it. He doesn't really want you to have. You're sure you could have some of these chips, right? And it's like nimis, you know what I'm saying? And you're over love, because it says al tilchem. It's like, don't eat that guy's bread. It says actually over b'shnei lav, and you violate 2 negative prohibitions. Why? Because it says in the pasuk we said al tilchem, don't break bread with him. And there, the begoyma that we skip, it says al tisav, don't desire l'matamayamoisa for all his good, tasty zachen. Don't take, because this is bitter pills that you're having from the sarayin. Another teaching from Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, the 8th and final teaching, ein egla rufa ba, the decapitated calf only comes el b'shvil tzarei ayin, because of these people that are not generous. Why? What does that mean? Because it says a pasuk in the bottom. It says va'onu va'amru. They answered and they said, Yedeinu l'shavchas adam hazeh, our hands did not spill this blood. Meaning, what happens is someone was walking on the roads and the highways between the towns, and he was murdered. He was found dead. They don't know who killed him, so the closest town has to bring a negla roof, and they have to take the calf and decapitate it. So the elders of the town have to say, we didn't spill this blood. The question of also, you think we would entertain shazikne bezn shevchi damim, the elders of the courts, the grace and tzaddikim, that they spilled blood? No, what does it mean? He didn't come to us that we let him go. That we didn't see him and we let him. What does that mean? He didn't come to us that we let him go below mezainas, without food. In other words, he needed food. He didn't have. He saw some guy carrying food, and he came to snatch from that person because of the situation of his famine. The other guy, he killed him, which some say that's the tsar ayin. He's the guy who is not generous. he didn't want to share with this guy, and he killed the guy who was trying to just grab a little bit of food to stay alive. So the Bezikna Bez is saying, no, we didn't create such a situation. We didn't see him and let him go without a group to go with him. So therefore, it turns out that the whole Egla Roof is only because of the Tzari Ayin, the people that don't want to share with what they have. Now, going back to this halacha of Nesias Kapayim, which is the theme of our Mishnah, Amar Adda Amar Reb Simloi. He says, if you have a basic Knesset Shekula Kahanim, maybe you have a shul that's full of Kahanim, Kul Moil Duchen. They all go up to Duchen. Shul empties out, everyone goes up. Says Lemim Mavarchin, who are they benching? There's no one in shul. Everyone's up there on the bima, by the Duchen. So Amar B'Zeicha says La'achim Shebesodos, to the brothers in the fields, who they beyond their control because of their work, they can't come to shul. They're out in the fields. Those people will get the bracha. Says Gemara, right. So the Nashim Avadim are not. Does that say it here? Nashim Avadim themselves are not enough to make a bracha for them. But you're right. There is brought that idea in halacha that have the women and the children over there. But first of all, it could be the women and the children are not there. That's first of all, and also it's possible that it wouldn't be significant enough to do Birchas Kahanim for them. Now, but they are included in the bracha. They do get Birchas Kahanim. Now, Ini says, is that really so? Bavatani Abba Bered Rav Menyamin Barchi says, Am Shechar Kahanim. The people that are standing behind the Kahanim, there's you see this every time in shul. In Mechal Bracha, they're not including the bracha. You see the people, everyone who sits on the Mizrach starts going towards the rear of the shul. So how could you say the people in the fields are part of the Birchas Kahanim? Even in shul himself, he's not part of Birchas Kahanim if you're behind the Kahanim. So it says it's not difficult. Hadanisi, this if it's beyond his control. Hadalayinisi if it's not beyond his control. In other words, if you're standing in shul behind the Kahanim, it's not an oynis. It's obviously that the bracha is not so chashiv to you to pick up your feet and to come in front of the Kahanim to be from those who are benched, panim keneged panim, like the halacha is supposed to be. So if you're not including the bracha, like we said, kaisav ochus panim keneged panim. But if it's beyond your control because you're in the sadis, you have no choice because you work. So then you would be included in the Birchas Kahanim. Tais discusses what happens if a guy's in town. So Tais says that's not considered oynis. And if you're in town, you're not coming to shul, you're not going to be part of the Birchas Kahanim. If you're in the fields and you have no choice because you work, fine. But if you're in shul and behind the Kahanim, no, then you won't be included because you obviously don't consider chashav enough. It says the Gemara, Bavatani Rav Simi mi Beirasa, which is the term of a bira of the palace, the Shichuri, which is the name of a place. He said the following brisa: Beis Knesset Shekula Kahanim. If you have a shul that's all Kahanim, he says differently. He says Miktasan Oil, Miktasan Amen. Some of the Kahanim go up to Duchen, and some stay and answer Amen. So what's the halacha? Do they all go up to Duchen, or do some go up and some stay down? Says Gemara Kash is not difficult. Depends on the circumstance. Ha dishtar be'asara. If you're going to have 10 remaining, so then some will go up to Duchen, and the 10 Kahanim will remain to answer as a tzibur, Amen. Ha de lo yishtar be'asara. But if you're not going to have 10 remaining, so it's not significant to make their own bracha, so therefore, let's say you have only 7 that will remain, because you're going to have whoever's going up, so therefore they all go up, and they're going to make the bracha la'achim shebesadis, which in halacha they discuss Mishabru regarding what it means. You see by Yisrael, even one Yisrael is significant. Yeah, that's because the ikr is to bench the Yisraelim. But Kahanim, if it's less than a minyan of Kahanim, it wouldn't be significant enough, and therefore then they'll all go up. But if you'll have a minyan remaining, it depends on the machlekes Yerushalayim. If you have to have 2 Kahanim, the minimum to do Birchas Kahanim, if you have an exact minyan, so you can't have one go up, it's you're going to be left with less than a minyan, then they all go up. But if you have 20 Kahanim, let 10 go up, let 10 remain, and hear the Birchas Kahanim. The Guf we learned, Tana, a Braisa, Abba Beredra, Minyamin Bachia. Am Shechar Kahanim, like we just mentioned this before, that the people that are behind the Kahanim, they're in the Mechal Bracha, they're not including the Bracha. So the Gemara says, Pshita, it's obvious like this. You're telling me why? Because it has to be pan connected pan, it has to be face to face. If you have a richi ba'apegutzi, you're always in that shiur, there's always, you're listening to a lecture, and you have the guy in front of you, this tall guy like a lavaya, and he has his hat on. And then you mamish can't see anything. If he tilts a little bit to the right, then you can see through the hat, like on the side. So it says, it's obvious if you have a richi ba'apegutzi, you're a tall person in front of a short person, like mifsiki. That's not considered as an interruption between him and the Kahanim, like to be part of the bracha. because, like Rashi says, then ein ladav asayf, there would be no end. You wouldn't ever be able to be exactly face to face. So that's not a hefsek. And tevelei mifsek. Also, the bima is not a hefsek, although there were certain tzaddikim like the dafka wanted to have straight face to face. But mechitzamai. The question is, what's with a partition? Is that considered as a hefsek or not? Which Taisa says that we're talking about specifically if it's loyanisi, if it's not beyond your control. But if it's beyond your control, then obvious that you're not going to be less than the people out in the fields. Of course, that would work. We're saying if it's beyond the control, there's no room. It's one of these big bati midrashas, and you have a wall, and there's no choice. So would you be part of the bracha or not? So the Gemara says, meaning it's not an oinus, meaning if it was oinus, for sure you would be, meaning you could come in front of the wall. But then Taisa says, then I don't understand. If it's not an oinus, so why are you better than the people behind the Gahanim that you said that they don't even have a mechitza and they wouldn't be part of it? So Taisa says, no, because if you're standing behind the Gahanim, you're showing yourself like you don't care about the bracha. Because Amal Lahem says face to face, and you're standing behind their neck. But when you're behind a wall, since you're not behind their backs, so that's not a problem, because no one ever said that you have to be that you can't be behind a wall. So therefore, that's the Gemara's question about what's the halacha with a wall, a mechitza, partition. The Gemara says, Tashmatz being a rai, Damar B'Shum Alevi says, Afil mechitza shabarzel, even a wall of metal in mafsekes ben Yisrael ben Mishra Shemaim does not separate between the Jewish people and the Father in heaven, and therefore says the Gemara, you will be yotzei your birchas kaihanim behind the wall. Now, by the way, the following question: Stadin mahu. What's the halacha on the sides? Let's say not directly in front. So Amar Abba Mar Baravash says Tashmatz being a raya that now we learn the Mishnah Masechtas Pada. Says Niskavan lahazes lafanav. Let's say a kohen had in mind he had to spray the ash waters that purify something that's tamei, and he intended to spray in front of him, but as he continued to have Balamatazim and Aleph, but he's alachrab, it's sprayed behind him. You know, somebody you try to do that pitch and like the ball flies out behind you. So there were also vessels behind him that needed to be sprayed. Well, let's alachrab, he tried to spray behind him, but he's lafan, but ended up spraying in front of him. So Allah is azasa psula. The spray is invalid because you need to have focus to purify, like it says in the pasuk Bamidbar, v'hiz ha'atar la'tameh, that you have to be focused. If it ended up going somewhere else, it's not yaitze. Let's say lefanav. Let's say you intended to spray in front, v'hiz ha'alatstadin shabafanav, and it's sprayed on the sides in front of him, meaning that you have the sides that are in front of him, not the sides that are behind him, but in front of him. Then hazasik sheira. Then the spray is going to be kasha. Says Rashi. So that's what the Gemara is answering here. Also, those who stand on the sides of the kahanim, meaning and forward, are included in the bracha because that's like in front of him. But what's behind him, even though they're not directly behind him, that's like behind him, and therefore that would not be included in the birchas kahanim. That's why people we always say that they're moving in front. You don't have to be directly in front. Although again, there were tzaddikim that wanted that, but as long as you're on the sides, that would still be considered as if you're in front. Think it to any time hosting us.